Dialectical behavior therapy was created in the 1980s by Marsha Linehan in Seattle, Washington.
Today, DBT is taught all over the world.
We're two therapists who believe everyone can benefit from DBT skills.
I'm Kate.
I'm Michelle.
And this is DBT and Me. Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
And welcome to What We Know About Skills Now That We Wish We Knew Then. I was thinking about it the other day when Michelle and I were talking about possible episode topics. There we go. And I was realizing that there's several skills I could probably have listed more than the three that I picked here today, wherein how I first experienced them and internalized them and sort of made sense of them, especially when I think of first as being when I was 19 and first in DBT as a consumer thereof, versus how I think about it and even teach it now. Some of those have gone on mighty journeys, I guess I would say, in how I think about and interact with them. And so that's what we're going to lean into today. Michelle and I both picked three skills where when we think about it, we're like, you know what this first seemed like to me is no longer really how I experience it, what my relationship is, I guess, with this skill anymore. But before we launch into that, a couple of things. First and foremost, our promotion this month is Patreon. I said patron. Nope, that's what you become when you're on Patreon. See, look, all that build up and then a terrible follow through.
Patreon.
The hint is cool shit is coming. We are working with a new assistant with the podcast who is very excited about helping us build out a new set of offerings for Patreon. So get in while the getting's good. Good shit is coming down the line. Mystery. Yeah. There we go.
Link is in the show notes.
Link is in the show notes.
Patron, yeah, now is the time.
Now's the time. And so my little disclaimer before I hand the mic proverbially over to Michelle is that my body has decided this afternoon should be Panicland. Let's have panic attacks. Let's go. I'm not sure why. I am rarely sure why. And I have done what self-regulation I can figure out doing and fit into the day and still be able to do recording. So if I'm a little bit ditzy, I am simply illustrating the thing I have said on this podcast many, many times, which is when we're really, really afraid or panicky, we're kind of dumb. It's just kind of true. So anyway, that's my disclaimer for today. Is I'm probably a little dumb.
You'll do just fine, I think. I believe in you.
I'm sure. I know DBT pretty well at this point, but I might stumble over my words or more than usual or other such things.
No worries. My disclaimer is that I'm in a different room than usual. I have never recorded in the room I'm in today, so hopefully the sound quality is good. That's the hope. And I think just one other quick thing I'll add as we get into the episode today, as Kate was saying, we're going to be talking about skills that we used to think of one way and now we think of them differently. And some of this we've probably said on the podcast before because especially as we've updated episodes or sometimes in Q&As, I think we'll have times where we're like, we know we've said this before, but now we actually think this. So don't be surprised if some of this is repetitive. But I also think, too, that what I'm hoping listeners will take away from this is less about our specific examples, but more that they'll use these as, I guess we could say, like inspiration for themselves, right? Of thinking of like, what's a DBT skill that you once thought of a certain way, especially if you've been doing DBT for a long time, that when you first learned it, you first heard about it, you had this one idea of what it meant. And then now you can think of how, you've evolved and you've changed with thinking about this skill. So hopefully it's helpful to hear our specific examples, but I hope some of your own examples really come out of listening to this too.
That's fair. I think that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I assume that a lot of the how we think about it now will sound somewhat repetitive.
Yeah,
But I don't
exactly.
know how many of the this is how we used to think will be. So I'm hoping that even if the end destination isn't surprising, that the journey itself might still be
I
a
agree.
surprise in our
Yes,
examples.
absolutely. All right. So the first one that I thought of, I chose please as a skill that I've recognized I've had a real change with how I look at it. Um, I used to not teach please very well. When Kay and I were leading groups together. Of course, it's an acronym skill, so I explained what each letters of the acronym meant. And I think this was even in the DBT manual, which I do have here in the office that I'm in, but I'm not reaching out to grab it. I think even in the handout, though, for please, it will say some of those things that we think about with the different elements, right? It would say things like make sure you're getting 8 hours of sleep, or like, exercise this many times. I feel like that's in the handouts. And so when I was teaching it, I used to think to myself that this is here as a skill because, well, these are just the things we should be doing. All of us, like these are the things that we know are good for us, right? It's good for us to avoid mood altering substances. It's good for us to eat and have a balanced diet. It's good for us to get sufficient sleep. So yes, of course, DBT is going to include something about that because it's like, hey, if something is feeling off with you, it's probably because you're not doing these things like you're supposed to do. So as long as you're exercising enough and sleeping enough and, treating your physical illness and all of that, then you'll be well on your way to feeling better. Because research has shown us that when we do tend to those things, we tend to feel better in our bodies. True. But I thought that was really the end all be all of the skill. That's truly what I thought it was. And then even a little bit over time, I started to realize, when I'm talking about please, I'm not really tying it into emotion regulation. I need to be tying this more into why this is in the emotion regulation module. And so then I started to talk about it as, when you are doing these things with please, it's hopefully going to more or less prevent you from flying off the handlebars, was kind of how I was thinking about it. Like you're going to be less likely to fall down the rabbit hole of emotion mind if you are well regulated in your physical body. So do these things to kind of prevent you from getting too emotionally dysregulated. Now, I don't necessarily think that that's incorrect, but also I don't think that really gives the full picture of how valuable please is in the emotion regulation module. It's such an important skill. And I've now come to realize that it's valuable for a lot more than the reasons I used to think of it as. Like, it's not just about taking care of your physical body. It's not just about this will help you not get into your emotion mind. Now, if you were to ask me to teach about please today, I kind of think of it as if metaphorically speaking, you can't drive a car if there's no gas in it. And I now really believe that when it comes to emotion regulation, we are not going to be able to emotionally regulate ourselves without trying to do some of these elements. Like I think of please less as this is to prevent emotion mind, and more about no, when you are in your emotion mind, you've gone down that rabbit hole, you are in it. Pause and look at these things. Chances are at least one of these is out of whack. And I used to, I think, also think of it too as okay, one of these things may be out of whack. Let's say you're able to connect the dots of no wonder I'm, acting this way today. I barely slept last night. Oh, that's what it is. Okay, please skill, get more sleep tonight. Okay, yes. Sure, that's great. But also, like, could you do anything to attend to that now in this moment, perhaps? Like, you're in the emotional dysregulation. What can you do now to do something about it? Could you move your body? Could you go grab a quick bite to eat? Could you take a nap? Could you like take an ibuprofen if you have a headache? Could you do something right here, right now to essentially put, metaphorically, gas in your car so that it will help you start getting on the right path that you need to be on to better emotionally regulate yourself? I've also really come to see that with please, I've said this before because I say this with a lot of skills, but I think it really applies here, and I didn't teach it this way for a long time. You don't need to try to do all of these. Kate and I named when we were teaching groups of like, we know that it's hard to do all of these at once. Nobody really does all of these at once. Like nobody eats, perfectly, always gets the right amount of sleep, exercises every day, right? Like nobody does that. We would normalize that. But also I think now I am much more clear of like, seriously, just pick the one you need right then, just even a little. Because I've thought of it too for myself where I'm like, we would talk about this in groups, like which of these is the one that you most struggle with? Well, pick that one and focus on that one, right? So someone in a group might be like, well, sleep is my struggle. So I'd be like, all right, that's your thing to focus on is getting more sleep. But again, that's kind of big picture, which can help with preventing emotion mind, like I was saying. But if you zoom into like, I'm dysregulated now, how do I use please? Yeah, absolutely. Don't think that you need to do all of these. Just hone in on the one that you need the most right then and see if you can do that one. Which definitely means that these things may not look how they, to use Kate's favorite word, should, right? We have this idea of what exercise should look like. But if you're actually using please, you might not be like, okay, well, exercise, I'm going to go to the gym. It might not look like that. It may be like, oh, I haven't been moving my body enough today. I'm going to go like get up off the couch and I'm going to just go like walk up and down the stairs once or twice. Perfect. You're doing it. Again, with eating, it doesn't have to look like eating a certain amount of vegetables a day or anything like that. It's like, oh, I haven't eaten in 8 hours and I'm getting hangry. What is near me? Oh, grab that, eat that. Great. You're practicing, please. So I think with this skill, I've really lowered my standards with it over time for what I once thought people should be doing and striving for. And now it's like, nope, when you find yourself really in a place of dysregulation, you just need to grasp for something and just pick something from please that you think you need, even a little bit, and see if it will help you. So I hope that made sense, but that's where I've arrived at with it now.
I like it. All right, my first skill is wise mind. And again, for context, when I was thinking about when did I first encounter or come to an opinion of these, this was when I was 19 and going through a DBT program as a client. And how I used to think of wise mind, and I'll admit this did persist up until the beginning of my teaching, I did teach it this way for a long time, was that I used to think that the balance that people always mention as being foundational, I guess, to wise mind was meant to be a 50-50 even split kind of balance between reason and emotion mind. That essentially the goal was to be pulling equally from both piles before moving forward, and that if you were more in one mind than in the other, you weren't really in your wise mind. Was definitely how I had internalized it for a long time. A little bit, I don't know, I think connected to, but not entirely the same as that, is that I also assumed that wise mind necessarily looked like being calm, like even keeled or unemotional, which really what this was doing altogether was just doing a lot of times where I was in my wise mind and would not have been capable of recognizing it as such, based on the criteria that I had. So now, fast forward to today, and I experienced the balance. I still think balance is a great word to use to bring and describe wise mind, but I think of it more like balancing on a tightrope, right? Sometimes you have to lean pretty far in one way or the other in order to keep your balance when you're on a tightrope. So yeah, I conceive of the tightrope itself as wise mind, and sometimes you need to lean more into emotion mind or more into reason mind to make a, I guess I'll say, reasonable, wise-minded choice. Some things are meant to be more reasonable, and some things are meant to be a little bit more emotional. So that was a real big shift for me. I think actually to zoom maybe out a little bit more to generalities, I would say that I now broadly think of wise mind as the practice of making sure that you're honoring your whole self with however you're moving forward. It doesn't mean that every piece of yourself gets an equally weighted vote in like what happens or where you go from here, but that you've at least listened to and brought something from like all these different pieces of your being. So you're not, discounting, invalidating, self-shaming, etc. Your own experiences and what they have to bring that's valuable to the table. I also realized that since part of it is bringing your emotion mind to the table, then that means that sometimes, gasp, you might actually be visibly having emotions while practicing wise mind, crying or being angry, etc. None of those things have to mean that you can't be in your wise mind. Right? Wise mind is really, like I said, about honoring your whole self in the situation, and sometimes that looks like having feelings. So those are two pretty big shifts for me, and to me, it just makes it so much more accessible, right? When I thought of wise mind as this sort of like perfectly balanced, like, I don't know, not quite clinical, but yeah, calm in that detached sort of Zen way. I so rarely feel that. So, like, I don't know, that was not what wise mind is or needs to look like for me. And so I felt, I don't know, kind of detached from the skill for a long time until I began to, I don't know, move in that direction between my own experiences and the experiences that I learned from clients. Because a lot of what I've learned over the years, I've learned from clients and groups. So,
yeah,
I think that one's me.
So for me, the second skill I chose was GIVE, another acronym.
Good. I'm glad you're bringing the acronyms.
Yeah, bringing in the acronyms. And I guess to just own, I realized in talking about GIVE, it's going to share a lot just about my own personal stance on things, which is that when you are leading a DBT group and you are teaching the interpersonal effectiveness module, you have three main skills that you are teaching. You're teaching Dear Man, you're teaching GIVE, and you're teaching FAST. And on the Dear Man weeks and the FAST weeks, I would feel a little bit like, oh man, these are the hard ones. I hope that I can do well with these ones, right? In our role plays that we would do, or just in talking through the different steps of the skill, because those were the two out of the three that I definitely felt most intimidated by. They are the ones that are the hardest for me to use in my life when I'm communicating with people. But when it would be the week of teaching GIVE, I'm like, oh, okay, GIVE, easy, got this, not hard. Because out of those three, GIVE has certainly felt the easiest for me. But I used to think for a long time that because it felt easy for me, that meant it was an easy skill. And GIVE can actually be very hard and challenging if you're using it in the right circumstances. And I don't think that Kate and I have been wrong or incorrect in any way when we've talked about when it's really valuable to use GIVE. We've talked about how it's a great skill to use when you're getting to know somebody and building a relationship, or how it's good when you're apologizing and making a repair. You know, those are times where it's really important to use this skill. That's all true. But deep down within myself, even if I didn't say it in groups, I would think it to myself where I'm like, but we should just really be this way all the time. Like this should just be our baseline when we're communicating with people. We're supposed to be gentle, interested, validating, using an easy manner, all the things. This is just how it should be all the time. So it seemed interesting to me when I looked at give alongside Dear Man and Fast, where I'm like, I get why this is a DBT skill because, DBT was created originally for people who are struggling with borderline personality disorder. And sometimes people with that diagnosis may really struggle to communicate in this way. But I just remember thinking to myself, I was like, I don't even know why they considered this a skill. Like, this isn't hard. I mean, and I look at it now, and not that I think I've been doing give wrong, but also I've come to realize that if you are really using give when you need to, and the when you need to is important, it's actually really hard. Like, this required some introspection on my part, but to really look at like, okay, Michelle, like just because you're not, to use the phrase I used earlier, I don't know why I'm using this phrase so many times today, flying off the handlebars, like at somebody, that doesn't mean that by default you're using give. Just because you're calm, respectful, that doesn't mean you're using give. And the circumstances where you really need give can actually be very challenging to use it. If you are trying to, I don't know, if somebody's coming to you and they're saying, hey, when you did this, it really bothered me. You know what? I don't jump to immediately using give most of the time in my life. I'm quick to try to explain my side. I'm quick to be like, oh, I didn't mean that. Like, I was really trying to say blah, blah, blah. Like, then I might, be like, well, I can understand why it didn't like land that way for you. But like, seriously, I didn't mean it. That's not using give, everybody. Like, that's not the skill. The skill is that I would put aside my own story, my own narrative, my own stuff to really be fully present and engaged with what the other person is telling me. And that how I will receive and respond to them is going to be focused primarily on validating their experience and making sure that like I'm really being gentle. And the thing is that like for me, again, I think that sometimes I'm being gentle because I'm being chill. But that's not the same. When we're really being gentle with somebody, it's like giving them a hug with our words and our tone of voice. And we're probably not really doing that. Hardly ever, or at least not sometimes when we really need to. And that's going to show up different for everyone depending on your personality. But this is actually a very hard skill, is what I've come to see. And there are people in my life where it feels easier to do give with. But the people that sometimes I really need to do it with are the people that are the more challenging personalities.
Word.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, it's easy for me to say practice give when Kate's telling me that she had a hard day. Okay. It's a lot harder to practice give sometimes, I don't know. It was really hard in my marriage with my ex-husband. Like it was hard and I probably didn't do it as often as I needed to, but I thought I was, but no, I was not. So I would just encourage any of you listening to this, if you've been in a similar mindset as I have been of like, oh, give is by far the easiest out of the 3 interpersonal effectiveness skills. I've got that one. Take a second look at it and really, really think about, because if you are using it, you will know that you're using it. Your brain will be really thinking about it. That's why I feel like we did it this way in groups for a long time. Kate, tell me if I'm wrong. But when we would have people practice this, we would tell them that when they were the one doing give, they were not allowed to say anything to the other person. I think.
Sometimes
maybe until like the very end.
Like only listening, nodding, and like doing like silent stuff.
Yeah, like only nonverbals. And then when the person is finished, then you can give them some validation. But yeah, when you're really super honed in with your listening skills, it takes brain power. It takes mental energy. This is why Kate and I have hard jobs as therapists. And whenever any of my friends are like, I feel like you're being a therapist with me right now, I'm like, trust me, I'm not, because when I'm actually with my clients, I'm in a totally different mindset.
Brain space. Yeah.
Yes. My brain is working in a way that when I'm with my friends, it's not. So when you're using give, your brain will hopefully feel like it's really working and you're really tuned in. And just because, I'm nice to people, that doesn't mean you're using give with them. And I deep down thought that for a long time.
That's fair. And I think it's something that I've evolved a little bit around too. I do know that people can be like, well, doing that feels an awful lot like self-abandonment or something like that. I'm like, it is a little bit, which is why you don't want to be doing this all the time.
Yeah, don't do it all the time. Yeah.
Right? It would not put you in a good place to do it all the time. So well noted. All right. My second one is mindfulness as a whole. I used to think truly, and I know it's not even really this way in the handouts, so I'm not sure why, but what I had internalized was that it really was essentially a synonym for meditating.
I have a question. I'm going to insert myself here. Was it taught to you that way when you were 19? Like, how do you remember them talking to you about mindfulness?
That's fair. I haven't gone back and found the handouts from that older version because I was taught the old version. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know that maybe it didn't go over all the other options so well. I know that I just did not leave with the idea that it was something I could do about, anytime, any place, anything, That was not at all. I really thought it was about meditating and I was really defining having my mind wander quickly and frequently as being bad at being mindful, right? I was like, well, the point is to be like, zen, brain focused, stays there doing the thing you're telling it to do, and not like brain focus what, which is more about how long my brain can last in a lot of quote unquote meditation settings. So I kind of gave up trying to be mindful in at least the ways that I thought mindfulness was. I would now look back and say that there were times I was kind of mindlessly practicing mindfulness. I say that that's a possibility. I die on that hill. Anyway, but how has that evolved to now? Now I think that the best things about mindfulness are that you can be mindful anytime, anywhere, while doing anything. Right? That is a line that anybody who's taken a DBT group from me has probably gotten sick of hearing, because I will say it so many times, especially in week 2 when we teach mindfulness: anytime, anywhere, anything. There's no limitation. It's not what you're doing, it's how you're doing it, right? And also I've come to realize just how beneficial doing it quote unquote badly still really is. I have better come to understand it as being more like lifting weights, right? It makes sense that I couldn't walk into a gym if I, for instance, never lifted weights at all and expect to deadlift 400 pounds. That's not happening. Right? I need lower difficulty and higher repetitions, right, to try and build up to that sort of thing. So yeah, my mind is prone to wandering every 3 to 5 seconds, if I'm being frank. But instead of seeing that as failure after failure after failure, I've been able to shift it to a place of like, whoop, there goes my brain again. And now I get to basically do a repetition, right, of lifting that weight by bringing my brain back to what I'm trying to pay attention to. And since, at least for me, the biggest challenge of mindfulness is the deciding what we're attending to. Every time I get to practice that action intentionally, like, whoop, nope, bringing it back, bringing it back, bringing it back, that has helped me have the ability to bring my brain back, right, to things that I want to focus on. It's not reasonable for many minds, and certainly not for my ADHD brain, to think that it's ever gonna stop wandering at all, right? That I'm ever gonna just sit down and then think about nothing or only one thing for like an hour. This is not a reasonable expectation to have. And yet I can still do a lot to build and to benefit from mindfulness. So that was something that I had a big about face with over time.
Yeah. I'd like to share, because I was thinking of this while you were talking, of something that's evolved for me with mindfulness.
Yeah, please.
Which is, even though it says this in, the DBT handouts, it talks about how you could be mindful of things external to you or mindful of things internal to you. I really held this belief system. I can't even tell you exactly where it came from, of just like, yes, you could be mindful anytime, anywhere of anything. But in my mind, I was like, that means you're being mindful of something external to yourself.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Like, that's just what my brain thought. Like, if I'm being mindful, then while I'm driving along, I'm noticing the clouds. I'm noticing the trees. Like, that's what it means to be mindful, is to be like more hyper aware of your environment. And yes, you could tune into that awareness anytime if you choose it about anything, but that's what it means. If I'm noticing and paying attention to what's happening around me, then that means I'm being mindful. And
fascinating.
I just completely neglected, even though this is definitely what mindfulness feels like and is most effective for me, is like, now if I'm being mindful, it's because I'm pausing and I'm taking a breath. Like, for me, I've come to see that mindfulness is going to serve me best when it's all like the internal mindfulness. What am I noticing emotionally? What am I feeling in my body? What are my thoughts right now? Rather than just like, I'm really paying attention to the grass when I'm like on a walk. Like, that kind of mindfulness I'm not saying there's not benefits to that, but it's just not what like works for me.
For you.
But I really thought that's what it meant to be mindful for a long time. I'm just like, you are picking up on every little detail around you. That's how you know you're paying attention.
It feels like you're describing hypervigilance. And I was like, oh no, that is not, I hope that's not mindfulness.
Yeah, that's what I believed it was. Maybe it came from like when I was at the girls' group home, we would have them do these like mindfulness exercises before dinner. We've had people do this at groups at all the podcasts of like, you pick up like an item and you just pay like,
I love that one. Mindful exploration of an object. Yeah.
Yeah. Or even just like, the mindful bite of a food. Or something. Like, this is what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to just be really engaged with this object, with this food, with this whatever. And I'm like, oh, that's very hard for me. And I like to do it different.
Yeah, good reflection.
Yeah. Hopefully that lands for some people. Moving on to my last one. Within the theme of mindfulness, I specifically chose the element of mindfulness with being non-judgmental. Right? That's one of the how skills of mindfulness. And maybe similarly to you, actually, Kate, where and I think this also applies, we were talking about Wise Mind too, of like, you just reach this place where, I don't know, you are evolved enough to where like when you're meditating, it's and you're zen. And when you're in Wise Mind, you're just totally calm all the time. That's what you're totally striving towards. Yep. And I used to think that with the non-judgmentalness component of mindfulness, you just are supposed to catch every single judgmental thought you have about everything and just tell it to get out of here. Like, you're just supposed to reach a point where you don't have judgmental thoughts anymore. Or like the minute that you catch them, you change them. The minute that you look at something and think like, oh, that looks gross. Oh, no. It's a judgmental thought. Change it to something non-judgmental right away. This is what you are supposed to do. This is unattainable, everybody, is what I have now come to see. I think the general theme that I noticed with this one and the first one I talked about is like, wow, I used to think that DBT was holding me to this really high standard, that I, as like a group facilitator, a therapist, that I'm supposed to also be holding everyone else to this standard. And now I'm like, no, that is not, it's not realistic. You're going to have judgmental thoughts for your entire life, every day. And even though Kate and I would talk about this in groups, we've shared this on the podcast of like, we need judgmental thoughts to like keep us safe. We do. You know, if you're going along in the world and your brain judges something as dangerous, that could be for good reason, and you should pay attention. That's important. But also, like, I've come to see that when it comes to the judgmental thoughts, what you really want to be mindful of is noticing which ones are getting you into trouble. Because you can have a lot of judgmental thoughts probably on a daily basis that don't really get you into trouble, right? I can walk through, I don't know, a furniture store and be looking at furniture and be like, oh, that's an ugly couch. And rather than me being like, oh, my bad, that's a judgment, change it. Does it really matter that I'm judging the couch as ugly? Probably not. You know, my brain is looking at these 5 couches and trying to pick which one I want the best and which one I'm going to buy. So yeah, I don't have to love every single couch. I can have a judgment about that couch and it's okay. That's not a problem. So to me, I'm like, that's not a judgment that I need to get hung up on having. What is important to notice and pay attention to is when your judgmental thoughts start to actually really create distress for you or start to create problems in your relationships. So if you notice especially a theme around your judgmental thoughts, pay attention to that. If you are, I'm trying to think of a random example off the top of my head. But yeah, I'm just thinking about like, I don't know, if you're trying to get to know people in a new group or something, and you find yourself thinking that everybody in that room is probably stuck up and full of themselves, I would check that judgment. Like, really? Is that true? And if that's leading you to then want to, I don't know, walk out of a setting that could actually be really beneficial for you, that's the stuff to be aware of. That's the stuff where you want to practice mindfulness of, wait, hold on a second. What am I basing that on? How can I change this thought to be a little less judgmental and a little more factual? How can I bring in some reason mind here, basically? Because what I really think this is about when it comes to working on, you know, doing things less judgmentally, is the sequence that I talk about ad nauseum on the podcast and probably will continue to talk about forever and ever and ever, which is that something happens, we think something, we feel something, we do something. When you are noticing and being mindful, mindfulness it's all about our thoughts. It's all about what are we tuning into? What are we paying attention to? What are we noticing? That's what it's about. And as I just named to, you know, tag on to Kate's point, I was thinking like, well, I'm supposed to be noticing my external world more. That's me being mindful. But boy, when it comes to targeting our thoughts, yeah, non-judgmentalness is all about catching it as soon as you can before you start heading full on down that path to an action and a choice that may really get you into trouble or have some bad consequences later. if you are catching that your judgmental thoughts are bringing you to that point, the whole reason why DBT wants to talk about this is because if you were to switch that thought to one that's less judgmental, you're going to go down a completely different, far more effective path for what you ultimately decide to do. But you first have to be mindful of and catch the judgmental thought as a judgmental thought. And if you've grown up at all like I have with a mother who lives and breathes judgments constantly about herself, other people, the world, everything and everyone is a problem at all times, and everything sucks a lot of the time. If you've been marinated in a very judgmental environment, you may have a very hard time catching your judgments because you just think this is how you just think about people. This is how you just talk about people, right? This is just how you show up. It's how everyone I know shows up. But that's probably gotten you to a point where you're pretty deeply unhappy. So all of that is to say, I now believe with non-judgmentalness, you do not have to be catching and correcting every judgmental thought you have forever and all time, or having it as a goal that like one day I'll reach a point where I don't think judgmentally anymore. You will not arrive there. But I do want you to pick and choose the judgments that you have where you can really see the consequences of them and target changing those.
My last one was checking the facts.
Nice.
I will admit that as a 19-year-old, I mostly experienced that as like, well, gee, thanks for giving me a way to show that what I was feeling was inappropriate. You and every fucking buddy else, right? Like, it was not, like, I could see how it could be helpful sometimes, right? When I could catch myself in the, like, some of my particular forms of catastrophic thinking. But by and large, it felt like, yeah, one, jumping on the bandwagon of Kate's feelings are too much with everybody else in a way that I didn't want to. And also, if I'm being entirely honest, it's one of the longer and more complicated forms in DBT. And that is not the way to my heart. It gets so long, right? Like, it makes me want to, like, slump in my chair in boredom thinking about filling it out. If I'm being entirely honest, it feels like tax forms. I don't know. I can't even. And so, yeah, I didn't have much of a thumbs up relationship with Check the Facts for a long time. However, now I have become aware that it can be used just as well to intentionally self-validate as it can be used to help see when your feelings or our feelings may not be commensurate to a situation, right? For people who have been externally invalidated for their feelings all their life, it can sometimes do a surprising dose of good to be like, no, see, it really does make sense that pissed me off, right? And that this is a tool that can be utilized that way. And also I have found my shortcut, which I'm sure everyone, this is speaking of things that are repeat, right? I'm sure everyone knows by now, my, what do I actually know? As a shortcut way to get to the same sort of destination as the incredibly long, worksheet of Check the Facts. May not do everything for everybody, but it does the right thing for me. And so it's now I use that in like quite consistently in my life, making it one of my probably top 5 most used DBT skills, which is really funny because for a long time in there, I hated it. Yep, from like 19 to how old am I now? How long have we been? To my 30s, I guess, right? So a good decade there where I was like, no, thank you, because it was just overwhelming, and I just felt like putting judgment of myself on paper in a way that I didn't appreciate. Yeah, which I now see there's usefulness in putting those things on the paper, right? Like, but I was 19, and boy, did I have moods. I had thoughts. Before I jump into closing moment, do you have any last reflections or thoughts?
I was actually just thinking something about Check the Facts, because I know one thing that you love about pros and cons is that for pros and cons, you were like, this felt like one of the first skills where I really felt like kind of seen or understood with self-harming, was doing pros and cons. I felt so like kind of validated with that skill. So how interesting that then check the facts would feel so invalidating to you. But I think all of that's to say that, you know, if people are going into a check the facts worksheet, to really approach it with the same mentality as pros and cons.
Oh, sure.
Because pros and cons doesn't assume that like there's a quote unquote like right answer. And I think with check the facts, yes, it is kind of taught a lot of times is like, well, the right answer is that you will see that your emotions and or their intensity do not fit the facts. That
if you even have to ask the question, that's almost certainly the answer, right?
Yeah. But when we go into it with a much more open mentality of like, this could lead anywhere. The outcome could be anything. Like sometimes my emotions will fit the facts. Sometimes they won't. You know, I don't really know. So I'm just going to go through the questions and see what happens. The same way that you go through a pros and cons worksheet and you fill in each of those boxes, then I think it could kind of change the relationship.
Definitely. I think it was taught at the time where BPD and emotions and all those things were still pretty villainized. In DBT spaces. But no, I agree with you that like I don't remember the line, but it's like, name the emotion that you're wanting to change? And I always have people change that to what's the emotion I'm wanting to like explore, right? Or investigate. To bring that sort of open-minded curiosity to it. But really to me it's just the best skill for helping me see how much of my emotional response is my own storytelling. And that's a thing I definitely need and make regular use of. So grateful to its existence now. Did not appreciate how it was presented to me.
Way back when.
In the Wayback Machine. It's true.
Yeah. Great.
All right, on to closing moment then.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. As per usual, take a moment to just get comfortable with your body. This could mean sitting, laying down, standing up, walking, whatever feels good and right to you in this moment. And if you feel safe doing so, I invite you to close your eyes. For today's... Oh, sorry. I'm just going to have to read it. Just delete this part. Sorry, Michelle. We'll get back to there. All right. As per usual, we're going to begin by just noticing our breath. You don't need to breathe any more deeply or any more slowly than you are naturally. This is just about tuning in. Just about really paying attention and sinking into the rhythms and the sensations of your breath and letting them welcome you into your body and into the present moment. So for today's exercise, I'd love for you to think a moment, reach back in your memory, and pick something. It could be a DBT skill or in no way, shape, or form related to DBT, but pick something where your understanding of it or relationship to it has really changed over the time that it's been a piece of your life. This could be skills. This could be concepts. This could be food, right? It's really broad, whatever this means to you, but just take a moment and bring some curiosity to yourself and try and bring forward an answer. When you find yourself having picked whatever it is that you're bringing to mind, spend some time with it. Try and notice, where did my understanding or relationship to this change? In what way did it change? What spurred that on? To bring some DBT lingo into it, how and where did willingness enter the picture to make that change possible? There's no right or wrong answers to this. There may be questions that I'm asking that you get a resounding lack of answer from yourself about, and that's okay. There's not really any way to do this wrong. It's so long as you're bringing a sense of open curiosity to the concept. This is really just about exploring the current stage something is having in its life cycle and its relationship to you. To pull another example that might resonate for folks is potentially the relationship to the idea of marriage changes over the course of our life, right? So just taking that moment to try and be mindfully aware of when and how and why your experience of that thing changed. And just notice, just pay attention. Maybe notice things that you could bring to other spaces, other relationships that served you here, but no need to. Right now, the only thing important is to be curious and to pay attention. And again, if there's things that you find yourself noticing or learning that you want to apply to other thoughts or ideas or relationships in your life, then I invite you to do so. But for now, you can go ahead and release whatever thoughts or images were coming to your mind for this and start to slowly come back into your body. You might do this by taking a few slower and deeper breaths, or maybe doing some gentle stretching, rolling your wrists and ankles, neck and shoulders, whatever feels good and right in your body. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. To learn more about us and the DBT skills we're teaching each week, join our Facebook group. Simply log in to your Facebook profile and search for DBT and Me Podcast.